Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Julie Petty, and I work with Meat and Livestock Australia as the Goat Industry Development Officer. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, which is the third in a series about profitable grazing systems. Today's webinar is all around monitoring and evaluation and answering some of the commonly asked questions and whatnot that we get about monitoring and evaluation and how it fits in with this program. Before we crack on and get introduced to our guest speakers for today, though, I'll just quickly go through a little bit of housekeeping. Firstly, obviously you would have received in your registration email some information about the meeting number, password, that type of thing. If you're having any issues connecting your audio settings, you can do that either by phone or by through your computer headset. So, and you can change your settings there, as you can see. And then if you're wanting to join via computer, there's a link and whatnot in your registration email that you can follow. If you have a question at any point through today's webinar, please just type that into the chat function there. I'll be monitoring that as we're going along today. So you can pop those in at any old time. Just to make sure everyone can hear me and everything's running okay and I'm not talking to myself, do you mind just popping into your chat box your postcode for me, please? While everyone's doing that, I'll quickly introduce our guest speakers for today, the lovely Leanne Sheriff and Basil Doonan from Macquarie Franklin. They're going to talk us through this monitoring and evaluation topic. And so thank you very much, everyone, for popping in your postcodes. I can see those coming through, so I'm pleased I'm not just talking to myself here, which is great. So, Basil and Leanne, without further ado, would you guys like to kick off your presentation, please?
Thanks, Julie. Could you flick to the next slide, please, Julie? Great, thank you. So the purpose of today's webinar is to familiarise providers who are interested in being part of profitable grazing systems with the monitoring and evaluation requirements of profitable grazing systems. I think most people who have worked with MLA in the past would be aware that MLA have some rigorous monitoring and evaluation requirements around all of their programs in order to continually improve what they do and also in order to be able to demonstrate impact. So profitable grazing systems is no different in this regard. And in fact, because quality assurance is such a critical component of the profitable grazing systems being more of a commercial model, the monitoring evaluation requirements will be quite rigorous. So we'd like for today's webinar participants to better understand both the purpose and the requirements of the monitoring evaluation around profitable grazing systems and how the processes can actually provide value to both them and the producers that they're working with. We'd like you to become more familiar with the CASA, the knowledge, attitude, skills and aptitude templates, and also to understand better the ways in which you can assess the skills and knowledge of the producers that you're working with. Could you just flip to the next slide, please, Julie? So just a quick update on where things are at with profitable grazing systems overall. The state coordinators are being contracted and their contracting should be finalised and they'll be available to be contacted in early September. The Profitable Grazing Systems leadership team has also been selected. The main role for this group will be to both deliver and champion profitable grazing systems and also to support the national and state coordinators and work on mentoring and supporting deliverers who need a little bit of additional support in either the technical areas in which they're delivering or in the supported learning methodology. We've got a list there of our leadership team members, so we're really excited to be welcoming Ian, Steve, Cam, Ken and Simon into the Profitable Grazing Systems leadership group. That will be for a 2-year term with some staggering. So we won't have complete renewal of the leadership team all in one hit. There'll be some stay on for maybe a year longer while others turn over. And it's really important to understand that any delivery contact with the members of the leadership team will be managed by the state coordinators through the national coordinator, so you shouldn't get in contact with them directly if you've got any queries. That will be managed by your state coordinator. So, Julie, if you could just flip to the next slide, please. As I've already indicated, that profitable grazing systems will be relying on a commercial delivery model, and so delivering excellent value and maintaining a high quality of service is going to be critical to the long-term success of the program. We also need to be able to demonstrate impact of the program and achievement of our KPIs and objectives to both the MLA board and to industry. We want to build a culture of continuous improvement around PGS, and we want that to run from the deliverers right through to the coordination teams. And the monitoring evaluation processes are going to underpin all of this and be really critical for quality assurance. So all of those involved in the profitable grazing systems will be encouraged to get on board and embrace the monitoring and evaluation. Basil, I'll hand over to you for the next slide.
Thanks, Leanne. Next slide. Thanks, Julie. Just to refresh the vision, the aim of PGS is to increase farm business profit by increasing producer skills, capability and practice change, and so helping producers understand that profit is really a function of management capability, evidence and a value chain approach, so producing something that someone actually wants to buy. There's always been a significant challenge in measuring profit directly, and certainly within the lifetime of projects, but specifically extension projects. This project will be no different, although one of the benefits we've got is that, obviously the delivery and coaching process is likely to happen over a 12 to 18 month process with a specific aim on skill development, which if we look at skill development as a practice in its own right, we should actually see some of that practice change starting to happen within the life of the project. Could just flick on to the next one, please, Julie? So I guess this is the premise that we're working on, that for a long time through comparative analysis, we've focused on and encouraged producers what to do and the sorts of techniques and technologies they need to adopt with I guess, limited demonstrable impact on farm profitability. So the next step was to then look at, okay, what you do is important, but how you do it is even more important. And to be able to do it, that we need to get this skill development. So the focus of the M&E for PGS is to then measure skills and knowledge change. Once that's being implemented, the increase in confidence and the uptake of the key practices that are described within the project. So back to you, Leanne.
Yep. Julie, could you go to the next slide? So Julie circulated to those who registered by yesterday, last night, a copy of the business CASA template for PGS. So for those of you who've had a chance to have a look at that, there'll be a different CASA template for each of the curriculums. So we'll be having 9 in total. They've got exactly the same format. The key difference between them is that they've got curriculum appropriate questions, which vary obviously depending on the curriculum that we're looking at. Business one's just intended as an example, but if anyone wants to look at any of the other curriculum CASA templates, then they should feel free to get in touch with Julie and we can forward those to you. But the key topics that you could expect to see appearing in those CASA templates are listed in the M&E table at the end of every curriculum. So the curriculums themselves give you a really good idea of the kind of things that will be in each of the different curriculum CASA templates. So the templates themselves are divided into 3 sections. We've got Section A, which is knowledge and skills, Section B, which are questions relating to confidence, and Section C, which is questions relating to practice change. And at the start of the pre-CASA template, we've also got demographic data on participants that needs to be completed at that time as well. So the Section A, which is the knowledge and skills, this includes example questions for each curriculum, which deliverers are able to modify. They can put in more appropriate questions. They might decide to assess skills in a completely different way rather than a questionnaire, and Parcel will talk a bit more about that in the webinar. The sections B and C, the confidence and practice change, those questions are set, and deliverers are not able to alter those questions, with the exception being if they use 2 or more curriculums and combine those to deliver their supported learning project. And so therefore there's questions in them that are relating to areas which aren't being covered by them, and they might be deleted and replaced with relevant questions from another curriculum. Any altering of the sections B and C must be done in consultation with the state coordinator, and the state coordinator must approve all of the skills audits before they're used. So the confidence part of the CASA template is a rating system of 1 to 10 of participants' ability to do particular tasks, which were identified by the curriculum working group as being really important to be able to implement key skills and lift their business performance. The practice change section, again, is a rating from normal to never, and its key practices, again, identified by the curriculum working group that were believed to be key to driving optimum business performance. The CASA templates or the skills audits are intended to be used pre and post the delivery of the supported learning projects. The pre must be done before any material is delivered. So right at the start of your introductory workshop or activity, you should get the participants to complete that skills audit then and there, and the post should be done after the delivery of all of the material. For those projects that are running for longer than 9 months, there will be a brief midterms audit that will be required to be completed at about the 6-month mark.
Leanne?
Yep.
Sorry, it's Julie here. Do you mind just holding the microphone a bit closer, or you're just coming through a little bit crackly on and off and sounding a bit distant? Sorry?
Yep, okay, no worries. Is that better?
Keep talking and I'll let you know.
Okay. Well, I've pretty well finished on my slide, so I'll hand over to Basil, and if you can flip slides, please, Julie.
So this next section is just on assessing skills and knowledge. And I think if we go back to our experience with both Farm 300 and the PGS pilot, certainly there's been a much stronger focus on capturing the initial level of knowledge and change in knowledge rather than the change in skill. And I guess the reason is that we have adopted a written approach, which I think that's probably the minimum requirement. For skill development, I think ideally we really want to see people physically demonstrate the skill wherever possible. So things like photographs, I guess videos, those sorts of things can certainly help with that. I also think, if we are providing an opportunity for people to develop their skills and practice them, that there's always the opportunity in the last sort of coaching session to run that as the skills audit as a practical example. And I guess it probably takes one practical assessment to capture probably the equivalent of 3 to 4 questions worth of information. At the end of the day, through a questioning approach, you still only probably ever know whether they know how to do it rather than they can actually do it. So just in terms of some tips around the audit process, I think it's always important to include an unsure option so that clearly at the start people can say, I just don't know and I'm not going to guess. Generally you want questions with only one correct answer just to make it clearer and so that people don't have to reread questions and make sure they haven't missed an answer. We need to limit the answer choices and the length of the question. We find where we get long questions, people don't give them the attention that they deserve. The questions need to be really clear and unambiguous. We're not trying to trick people. Similarly, at the end of the process, we're not trying to run almost a not yet competent approach. We clearly want to know whether they can do it or they can't do it. And we don't like ratings of their knowledge or skill because we tend to find that provides no real guide to the actual level of knowledge or skill. Next one, Julie. Just in terms of contexting the skills audit, I think, and the whole M&E activities, I think the main thing is, and this is certainly our experience with FAR 300 and the pilot as well, that the first and foremost, you can't be, nor should you be, apologetic for the process. We've gone in here charging people to develop their skills. We have to know where they start. We have to know where they finish. We have to know if the processes work. We have to know if we're doing our job. We find that if people go in there and just clearly state it, that it's part of the process and it's a requirement for a continuous improvement process, that it's not an issue. It's when people go in and tell people that they're not going to enjoy the process and we're sorry you have to go through it, that we get negative feedback. So I think that's the main thing with contexting it is to make out that it has to be part of the process as a critical part, and at the end of the day, we need it to be able to demonstrate value. Back to you, Leanne.
Okay, could you go to the next slide, please, Julie? Okay, so there are some other evaluation processes that will be included as part of profitable grazing systems. And one thing that we learnt during the pilot project and Farm 300 was that this supported learning approach is new to many consultants and deliverers. And so therefore we wanted profitable grazing systems to be able to provide an opportunity for them to improve their skills in this method of extension. And the pilot project really clearly demonstrated to us that ideally what was needed was an opportunity for deliverers to be able to reflect on their own performance as a coach and also to receive feedback from their participants and then have an opportunity to process those two data sets and see where their areas for improvement were. So what we'll have as part of profitable grazing systems is a monitoring and evaluation plan template that will be available for deliverers to conduct self-assessments and obtain feedback from participants at key points in their supported learning project delivery. And we'll provide the templates for the self-assessments and feedback as well. Or alternatively, deliverers may wish to design their own approach to doing this type of M&E, and we're really open to deliverers really engaging and owning their own M&E. However, the M&E plan that is designed by deliverers must be agreed with the state coordinator. As we've already mentioned, ensuring that PGS maintains a really high standard of delivery and offers participants excellent value on their investment of time and money is going to require a level of quality assurance, and all of the M&E that we've spoken about will have a role in ensuring the quality of delivery. But an additional layer that we're going to add into profitable grazing systems is the use of producer interviews. So producers from a supported learning project will be randomly selected at any stage during the delivery of that project and interviewed by an independent party. Deliverers will be advised that those interviews are occurring, and they'll be provided with a summary of the feedback by the state coordinator. And if you can just move on to the next slide, please, Julie. I guess I'd just like to make the point now, which is point 3 on this slide, that all of the M&E data that's collected during profitable grazing systems and provided by deliverers will be collated and provided back to deliverers in brief reports. And they'll also be given verbal feedback and information from the state coordinator. So we really want to ensure that profitable grazing systems creates an environment where deliverers can improve their own skills in delivery and supported learning project design, and that they're provided with constructive feedback and support to do this. So there's a little bit on that slide as well around the data collection processes. So the data that deliverers collect will need to be entered into templates provided and submitted to state coordinators. And similarly with the self-assessment and feedback data, that also needs to be entered into templates and submitted to state coordinators, so then it can be processed by the monitoring evaluation coordinator and provided back. What we'll be doing as part of that is providing the data so that the deliverers can understand their own group performance with some benchmarks applied, but also that they can compare themselves with other PGS deliverers, and that'll be done in a way so deliverers are de-identified. So I guess just to summarise, what we're really aiming to do is to make it a two-way system where data comes in from deliverers and then it's fed back to them in a way that enables them to identify areas for improvement and be supported to make those improvements where they need that support. Julie, I can hand back to you now, please, for any questions.
Cool. Oh, thanks very much, Basil and Leanne. We whizzed through that really quickly and very comprehensive. So just a reminder to everyone, if you've got any questions, just to pop those into the chat function that's there on the right-hand side of your screen. We've had a couple of questions come through already, Leanne and Basil. So just a question about whether or not you might be able to talk through quickly the specialities, I guess, or areas, the strong suits for each of the leadership team members. If we go back to that slide.
Yep, sure. Basil, did you want to do that, or would you like me to?
You fire away.
Yep. So Ian's main area of expertise is business, technical area. I guess with the leadership team, what we've tried to do is, as you can probably see from the locations that these people are based, is we've tried to go more for people who have delivered supported learning projects and have a good grasp of the design and delivery, because that's the main area where we believe the sort of support from them will be required. So all of these people have a track record in delivering and designing supported learning projects. So that's one of their key strengths across the board. They do have different areas of expertise. So as I said, Ian's business. Steve is business as well and into feed-based. Cam Nicholson is business and feed-based. Basil is also business and feed-based. Ken Solly, similar, and Simon Vogt from Rural Directions is Beef Repro and feed-based and business as well. So the species that the curriculum, that the leadership team cover and their experience within different farming systems is also variable. Basil, did you want to add in anything?
Just at the other aspect to it was probably the ability to be able to mentor others in this space. So far more important than the technical area was more the whole understanding of the supported learning concept and the ability to help other people work through the project application process and develop them and provide input into that, much more so than technical competence. There's a myriad of technically competent people out there we can refer people onto for that sort of issue, but there's a limited number of people that have delivered these programs over an extended period of time and can clearly articulate to others what makes them successful, what are the challenges, what are the hurdles, how do you go about recruitment, all of that sort of stuff.
Thanks, Basil and Leanne. We've got another question just in regards to one of the comments you've just made, Basil, around the mentoring sort of role. So how are you guys envisaging that will work? Is that mentoring for the state coordinators, or on an individual basis, or on a team basis? How will that work?
So it'll be coordinated through the state and national coordinators. So it'll basically be using the project application as a case study. So if a project application comes in that has great intent, but it needs some work on it, then that'll be used for the basis of the mentoring process, and it will be basically a one-on-one scenario.
Okay. Cool. Thank you very much, Basil. And is there another question around the leadership team? Someone's just commented no one's there from a New South Wales perspective, but based on what you said, that's not necessarily an issue. It's about the ability of the individual.
Yeah, Julie, look, I think in the background there was a desire to go across technical issues and geographical space. But I think as people will appreciate, a lot of the people we would have approached were pretty busy, and also in their own right couldn't commit to being able to take the extra work on. So there were quite a few others approached who weren't able to commit to the leadership team. And we're hopeful that we'll be able to expand it, not necessarily expand it, but roll it over, in the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, okay. So you'll be able to change the leadership team up a little bit depending on people's availability and skill sets.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, cool. No worries. Is there any other questions coming through from anyone at the moment? Don't worry, you can just add that into your chat function at any time there for people.
Can I just make a comment that we didn't cover in this portal, and that's around when the skills audits are conducted, that it shouldn't be done as a group, so that participants are coached to the correct answer. That's not how we intend for it to be used. That it needs to be done so each participant completes it individually with where they're at. And then after that's done, if the coach then wants to use it as a learning tool to work through what the correct answers are and why, then that's fine. But the initial running of the skills audit should be done individually. Basil, did you want to make any other comment on that?
No, I think you've covered that well.
So in the templates that people will have access to with there's some fixed questions, I believe you said, and some that are flexible. Are those... Sorry?
Yep, so sorry, continue to ask. Sorry, Julie.
That's okay. So the questions in those forms and the examples, are they designed to be taken in sort of a written test, or more what you're recommending in that it's out in the paddock and you're actually, as they're walking around looking at the pasture, for example, you're able to fit them with questions and assess them in that fashion?
No, so the practical testing or assessing that Basil was talking about, that would just be purely on skills. to actually be able to get an objective measure of what their knowledge is, and also the questions around the competence and practice, they would actually need to be physically completed by a written skills audit.
And do those individual results, they're just aggregated back to the state coordinator? No producers are going to be individually named? And
no, the template that they provide back to the state coordinator needs to list all of the producers and what their results are. And the reason we do that is so that when we come to the post data, the data at the end of the program, we can line up the individuals with their pre and post and get a real indication of what the shifts have been, and if there's any outliers, we can maybe have a conversation with the deliverer about that particular outlier. So it's really important that the individuals are able to be identified in the data that's submitted to the state coordinator. Beyond that, when we're talking about having benchmark data circulated, individual data wouldn't be identified. It would be group averages and things like that would be shared with other, as sort of a benchmarking report with other deliverers.
Cool. Do we want any feedback from the coaches in terms of what sort of aggregated feedback would be really useful? Talking about this two-way feedback loop back to them.
Absolutely, yep. So we'd really appreciate feedback from deliverers on, what's working for them as far as the templates go, and what sort of reporting back, would be valuable to them. Absolutely, if they're willing to give us some suggestions, that would be really appreciated.
Both in terms of the type of information and also the format?
Yep.
Cool, no worries. And would the best way to, if you do have any ideas in terms of how you'd like, what you'd like to receive in that two-way feedback loop, is that best to come through the state coordinator once we've announced who they all are?
Yeah, either once the state coordinators are on board through them, or directly through myself or Basil while we're still waiting for the national coordinator to be appointed.
Mm-hmm. Cool, no worries. Well, if there's no further questions coming back from the audience, Basil and Leanne, is there anything else that you guys would like to add before we wrap up today?
Not from me, thanks, Julie.
No, I think I'm all good.
Okay, cool. Well, we haven't had any further questions come through, so I might just do a quick wrap-up, and thank you everyone very much. The webinar today seems to have run a lot more smoothly than last time, which is a relief for us all. We'll have the recording for webinar 2, where we had all the IT issues, up on the website very shortly, along with this recording as well. And if anyone has any questions or suggestions or feedback about anything that we've discussed today, you're very welcome to get in touch with us. And Leanne, will this PowerPoint be available for people should they wish to get it?
Yeah, yep, sure.
No worries. Okay, cool. We'll also be asking for a little bit of feedback from people about how they feel the webinars run today, and if there's any suggestions you have for improving the scenario or the services we're providing and that type of thing. So really open and welcoming of any feedback that you might be able to give us and provide there, and we'll circulate that SurveyMonkey link to everyone who's registered for the webinar. So thanks again, everyone, for your time. We might wrap up there and say good night to everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie.